he was never going to be at it. And anyone who thought otherwise hadn't seen him in the NRL in his last 2-3 years. The guy was a shell of a player in those period, and I knew that 18 months later it wasn't going to be a magic fix, and he wasn't going to be the player he was before. And yeah, getting injured as he did was completely predictable. But yeah, the blooming financial jiggery-pokery about keeping him on and all that kind of stuff afterwards, for me, yes, classic Warrington, classic worst signing. So definite winner for me.
I think the thing with Inglis is he did actually contribute in a little bit of the games he played, because he scored and set up tries, and then he got injured, and I always feel it's a little bit harsher to go with the injured guy. But then again, it's not necessarily about him, is it? It's about the club that signed him. And when you extend it out to that, Warrington signed a player that was going to get injured, and he got injured. Yeah, that says how bad the signing was. So I can see that logic, yeah, when I've worked it through.
The guy retired in the NRL because of recurring long-term injuries.
They were clearly not expecting them to recur on the northern hemisphere then.
Yeah, because the water spins the other way down the plug hole, he wasn't going to bust his knee again. I don't know. I don't know what the flipping thought process was. It was a batshit crazy signing at the time. I called it as much.
Yeah.
It made absolutely no sense when Warrington, had, and certainly, they had good options at centre and stuff. It made no sense to me. And it proved right. So I've got I take a little bit of pride in being right about that for once.
So moving on, so a random vote came in for the Castleford Kitmen for choosing to play in all black at Wembley in 30-degree heat. Although we've got no proof that it was the Kitman's first year at Castleford, so we can't count that vote, I'm afraid. Other nominations: Corbin Sims, Jai Field, Lewis Biernick, Darcy Lussick all got votes from listeners.
Darcy Lussick was my sort of third favourite behind Inglis and Eastman.
So, yeah, I think we can all go along with those. Josh Reynolds also got votes, and he was third place, but quite a considerable way off the top two. Again, yeah. But again, it comes down to Josh Reynolds, a player that was never on the field. And so he was in third place with 7% of the votes. In second place was Kyle Eastman with 31% of the votes. And running away with it, or hobbling away with it, was Greg Inglis with 45% of the votes.
If we were naming this episode, Hobbling Away With It would have been the name of this episode.
That's genius. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So we move on to the See You Next Tuesday award. So previous winners of this in 2014, Zach Hardacre. In 2015, Marwan Kukash, remember him? 2016, Sean Wayne. 2017, Zach Hardacre. And then the three-peat, 2018, Zach Hardacre again. In 2019, the races at the Challenge Cup semi-final. And in 2020, it was that little thing called COVID-19. This was pretty unanimous amongst the hosts. I'm gonna. Yeah, Sarah, why don't you tell me why you voted for this particular entity?
So I voted for the ARL and NZRL boards just because I think they just decided that they weren't going to come over and wanted an excuse, and I think it was all really badly handled.
Can't disagree with that. That's why I also voted for them, and that's why my kind of blanking of the NRL for the foreseeable future is still in place.
Yeah, it's
anything
their
else you want to say?
As much as the actual decision that was made, and I think it could have been dealt with sooner as well, because they clearly never wanted to.
Yeah, exactly. Particularly
I think that's the thing that was most annoying.
It's almost like they just weren't picking up the phone to Ralph, was it? Or, well, it wouldn't have been Ralph, it would have been John Dutton. But I do think, it has now been rubber stamped, as it were, that they're definitely going to be involved in it next year. They're not going to play any shenanigans. They say,
They say,
again,
do
they've
we
signed the
actually hold on
participation
to
agreements, and so so hopefully they'll double down with that by showing a real commitment to the international game, rather than treating it as a fucking inconvenience like they have done, not just with this decision but consistently. And the Super League clubs sometimes treat the international game like it's an inconvenience, but the Australian NRL clubs are allowed to treat it like it's completely second rate, and these boards should be putting down more in place to make that not be how they're allowed to act, and they don't. They're spineless. So yeah, that's why I went for them.
Yeah, there's no argument from that one. So in terms of other votes, Zach Hardaker was back in with a vote after a year off last year.
Yeah, Joel Tompkins voted. Apparently he left a big shit in the toilet.
Talking of bitterness, one bitter Salford fan voted for Ian Watson. Andre Savelio, Jack Wellsby, Ken Davey, James Child and Chris Kendall all got dishonourable mentions. But in terms of the top three, in third place with 4%, it was Willie Isa. General shithousery, I think.
Yeah, that's a handful of St Helens fans, isn't it? That.
Yeah, I mean, he's yeah, I think that's a bit harsh. In second place, it was Derek Beaumont and Tony Clubb, both getting 13%. Unlucky for them. And the clear winner, undoubtedly, most people voted for this. 59% of people agreed that the ARL and the NZRL boards should go forth and multiply.
Yes, we will see them next Tuesday. Old Player of the Year. This player had to be aged 32 or over on the 25th of March this year, the day before the season started. Previous winners, this was a later award we added onto the list. Ben Westwood won it in 2018. James Roby won it in 2019. James Roby won it in 2020. And do you know what? We could be doing this in 10 years' time and James Roby might still be on the fucking form. In terms of the way we all went, there was a bit of a shift between us all. So, Alan, why don't you tell us about your vote first?
Yeah, much like yourself, I had a bit of a soft spot for this guy this year, and I didn't pick him elsewhere, so I felt kind of slightly duty-bound to pick him here. I went for Ryan Hall, for all the same reasons you said, kind of performing way beyond expectations. The guy couldn't buy a try in the NRL, and all of a sudden he's back in scoring form and playing really well, and yeah, a real renaissance for the guy. So that's why I went for Ryan Hall.
Fair enough. David went for James Roby. I can see the logic in Roby, because he's actually quite a bit older than a lot of the other players who were eligible for this year. It seems like we might have to think about putting the age floor up on this award with so many high caliber aging players around at the moment. But yeah, I guess he went for James Roby not just because he's a Saints player, but quality at a even more elevated. I think he's 35 in James Roby, whereas most of the other guys were like 32, 33 that were getting votes. But Sarah, you and me went the same way. Why did you go for your man?
So I went for Sam Tompkins because, as most people know, I don't like the guy, and this shows that I can vote for people I don't like. I just think he was phenomenal last year. Sorry?
It shows personal growth, Sarah.
Yeah. Well, it also shows that I probably don't like anyone that was on the list. But I just think he was so influential for Catalans. He was such a good player for them. He did everything. Yeah, I just don't think you can knock him. Yeah,
I went for him because not only was he the best player aged over 32, but spoiler alert, he was the best player for me. That's why I went for him. But amazingly, well done everyone. No incorrect votes were made this year, which pleases me hugely, because it meant that I didn't have to redo the sums and stuff, basically. But two players who weren't on the shortlist got votes, Matt Pryor and James Maloney. Then in third place was Hull KR's captain Sean Kenny Dowell, who had a great year. I think we can all agree, even if we do it through gritted teeth. In second place with 26% of the vote was the ageless James Roby, but the winner with 30% of the vote, so only just they're nipping ahead of James Roby, was Sam Tompkins. So well done, Sam.
Yeah. And we'll now go to the other end of the spectrum with the SLP Young Player of the Year. And they had to be aged 21 or under on the 25th of March 2021. Previous winners in a bygone era: 2014, Darrell Clark. 2015, George Williams. 2016, Ben Curry. Was he ever young enough?
Yeah.
2017, Jack Walker. 2018,
he's still probably young enough, isn't he? Young Jack.
Yeah, Danny Richardson. 2019, Morgan Smithies. 2020, Jack Wellsby for the grand final. For this one, host-wise, Mark and David were in agreement. David, obviously, because it's a St Helens player, but Mark, why did you vote for Jack Wellsby?
I just think the kid's outstanding. Whatever he does, he played a lot of games this year, but played them across lots of different positions. You know, I think he played twice on the wing and scored hat-tricks both times. He played a bunch of games at left centre and then played a bunch of games at right, a couple of games at right centre. He started the season at full-back when Coote was out, and really, as good as Coote's been for St Helens for the last 3 years, you didn't lose much with him. And he ended the year at half-back in the halves for a large period at the end of the regular season, and then in the playoffs was coming off the bench, doing stuff, making stuff happen. I think he did the same in the Challenge Cup final, didn't he? He came off the bench for Theo Farge and was really good in the second half. A huge reason why Saints were so good in that second half. I just think he's outstanding, and it sickens me to say it, but the kid's probably got 2 more of these awards in him yet. That's well, for me anyway. Yeah.
Alan, do you want to explain why you've gone for your choice?
Yeah, so I went for Artemorg. I know there's no rule about not, players who've previously won this award can't win it again, but I kind of discounted Wellsby on that basis. There's no reason for that. Absolutely no reason at all.
I think I agree. It's like, I think with, Super League Rookie of the Year or whatever it is that's given to them, you can't be a rookie once you've won an award.
So it's not that Wellsby wasn't really, really good, because he clearly was. But for me, Morg was a breakout player in terms of his impact when he came on. Very exciting player, kind of possibly the most exciting kind of French kind of dynamic player that Catalan have kind of brought through. And that might be a bit of a big claim, but it feels
maybe
like
one season of Escarret a few years ago, but Morg looks like he's got more consistency about him than that.
Yeah, I mean, Catalan have done a good job of developing forwards, but halves have not been quite the same. So yeah, for me, I found him the most exciting young player. So that's why I went for Artemorg.
Yeah, I went for Will Price just because he's come through a different club. And I do think he's an exciting player with plenty of potential for the future. But my second choice would have been Artemorg as well.
Yeah, I think my second choice would have been Artemorg as well. It's the player I've enjoyed watching the most. Will Price I've enjoyed watching as well, actually. But I just feel like Morg's obviously delivered more than Price has, but possibly because of the side that they've been in as well.
Yeah. So in terms of the general votes, there was just one non-shortlisted player that got a vote, which isn't usual, and that was Joe Shorrocks. In terms of the shortlisted players, Lewis Dodd's got no votes. Mikey Lewis did get some, but not enough for the top three. I think they'd have all been from his dad, actually. Just